Welcome to True Health Tuesdays. The truth will set you free. Live from Huntington Beach, California. I had to say that because a lot of people were saying, you never say where you are. Okay, today, health philosophy. Now it's weird, but when you look at this, you're going to see there's a big disconnect between what we really know and why we're actually doing it. What's happening in science now is there's a lack of wisdom. Okay, and the difference, philosophy is kind of like why you're doing something or the purpose behind it. Knowledge is more like the tools. Okay, you can learn that, but wisdom, you have to almost be experiential. It's the why behind it. Now, I want you to look at the classic definitions of this. Philosophical methods: questioning, critical discussion, rational argument, and systematic presentation. When you just look at that first sentence of what the love of wisdom is, or philosophy, is this practiced in healthcare? Critical discussion. Should everyone have the same blood pressure? No. Interesting. Common sense says no. What does the medical establishment say? It's a dogmatic approach. Of course everyone needs the same. Okay, of course everyone gets it. Now what this doesn't answer is how the body works. Now, in the past, and we're talking historically, philosophy, the love of wisdom, was encompassing all different subjects, and we don't think of that now. See, in modern day, okay, or in the dark ages, I should say, because it's 2017, in the dark ages of 2017, we think philosophy is a different subject, but it's not. Okay, Aristotle, 19th century, natural philosophy encompassed astronomy, medicine, physics, even Newton. I mean, apple in the head guy, developed a lot of mathematical principles. 1687, Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy. Isn't that interesting that philosophy has always been part of this? And the challenge is the philosophy of how the body works, or the wisdom, isn't there. Now, I wrote down just 7 little points here. 7 points that if they're incorporated, it would radically change healthcare. And all of these are truths. The body is self-healing and self-regulating. Every doctor learns this in school, absolutely. However, we kind of stray away from that. Why? If the body's self-healing and self-regulating, anyone have a problem with that? Do you know any animal species on the planet that is not self-healing and self-regulating? Does a beaver come up to you and say, good God, I've had high cholesterol, I really need something, man? That sounds stupid. Okay, we're not doing blood tests, okay, on deer mice and saying, geez, you guys got a blood pressure issue. Or maybe it's a cat down the block. You understand? So every organism on the planet is self-healing and self-regulating. That shouldn't be a discussion. There's an innate inborn intelligence in the body. Do you know that you could eat an apple or a banana and turn that into eye tissue by tomorrow? You're supposed to say, wow, I never really thought of that. Oh my God. You mean I'm taking this fruit, breaking it down to proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. I'm using those raw materials and regenerating myself. This should be like a wonderment, but there is an innate inborn intelligence. You have thousands and thousands of cellular reactions every second that your body doesn't need to think about. I mean, it's amazing. The body will adapt to physical, chemical, and emotional stressors in an intelligent manner. Now, this is a tough concept because in the dark ages, if you present with physical, chemical, or emotional stress, you understand those are 3 stressors. The body responds the same to physical, chemical, or emotional stress. Imagine if you're being chased by a tiger. You're going to have an elevation in heart rate. You're going to have blood supply shut down to the gut. You're going to have a weakened immune system because you need to survive that temporary stressor. And that could be a thought, it could be a physical trauma, it could be a toxic overload. So your body's going to respond the same to physical, chemical, and emotional stress in an intelligent manner. Let's say that you put yourself on an iceberg and you're wearing a bikini. Okay? Somebody might say, Berg, what are you doing in a bikini? I said, well, I was raised with sisters. No, but what's going to happen? Okay, you're going to have initially blood. The heart rate's going to elevate, and blood supply is going to go to the legs to warm that. Eventually, your core temperature is going to go so low that your blood vessels are going to constrict to where your toes become black, fall off, and even feet are going to get frostbitten. Why? To keep your core alive. Those are all intelligent responses given that environmental influence. So the body always does intelligent things, always. What about autoimmune diseases? Absolutely. It's an intelligent response given the environment it's in. See, if you're on an iceberg, your body's going to constrict the blood vessels to keep your core alive at the sacrifice of the extremities. Now, disease, and you'll see the way it's written, dis-ease, is an adaptive response to environmental stimulus. This is a tough one because in today's dark ages world, you'll have people that say, ooh, I got fibromyalgia. Really, what shape is it? How much does it weigh? What color is it? Now, that's not being glib because fibromyalgia is horrible. It's it's devastating. The symptoms are absolutely real. It's horrible. But is it a disease attacking you? Is it an entity attacking you? Or is it an intelligent adaptive response given physical, chemical, emotional stress? I'll tell you right now, so many diseases are like that, where they're presenting as an intelligent response given physical stress and chemical stress and emotional stress. If you try and fix the disease without fixing the stressors, that's just flat out stupid. Adaptive responses, including high blood pressure. Is there something defective on the person, or is this an adaptive response? What about fever? Did you know that for every 1 degree increase in temperature, the speed of the immune system doubles? So at 102, you got a 64 times faster immune system. Also, viruses, funguses, and bacteria die at a higher temperature. Is that intelligent or intelligent? Okay, yeah, so I had a patient's mom come by and said, oh yeah, I was really worried, the fever got up to 101. And so I gave them Tylenol. Tylenol, okay, you gave them the deadliest drug in America to weaken an intelligent immune system response. That's the most toxic drug to the liver and depletes the body of glutathione, which increases the blood-brain barrier damage because you're decreasing that blood-brain barrier function. And you gave them to reduce an intelligent immune system response. I worded it a lot nicer because she thought but that's what I was thinking. I said, it's not the best thing to do. Let's respect the body's processes. Constipation, diarrhea. Okay, why would somebody have diarrhea? Maybe to eliminate or to alkalinize? Skin reactions. You got 4 things: respiration, perspiration, pooping, and peeping. I can't tell you how many skin reactions, rashes, or a body getting rid of toxins. Okay, it's brilliant. Anxiety, depression. Are these really diseases, or are they defects in serotonin and dopamine production? Or are they consistent emotional responses based on how the brain is hardwired? Do you see this? These aren't diseases, although they're called diseases. Okay, neurologic motor responses. Why would a Parkinson's person have shakes? Because we know dopamine is produced by movement. To treat a human's adaptive response without addressing the cause will result in a poor outcome. If you've got somebody with physical, chemical, emotional stress, will they develop high blood pressure? Yes or yes? Yes. I know, I'm going to give the answer, so it's like really easy. It's not yes, or maybe. If you reduce that without fixing the stressor, you're decreasing oxygen, you're causing the body to be under more stress. It just doesn't make any sense. The laws of physiology, human must abide by these. We have to have sleep, we have to have appropriate nutrients, we have to deal effectively with our stressors. There's certain laws, and if you live outside of those laws, your body's going to develop diseases. Now, philosophy of modern medicine, okay, and it's interesting too because we've got a theory called the germ theory. Okay, those were 7 points that I brought up because I'm just thinking 40, 50 years from now, we'll actually start to be practicing that the body has intelligent responses and we'll respect it and help those responses. But let's look at modern day now. The body is self-healing and regulating, okay? All the doctors learn that. And then the next year, they learn that you can alter those physiologies or that regulation with chemicals. Don't know. The doctor is smarter than your physiology. The body is always trying to attain homeostasis. This is why everybody is going to get your blood pressure checked, because if it's not according to the book, and we know the books change, okay, then we're going to give you a chemical to alter that, because we're much smarter than your physiology. Cholesterol levels go up. We're not going to know that cholesterol is elevated under physical, chemical, emotional stress or need for hormone or an immune system response. We're just going to give you a chemical to lower it down because we're looking for homeostasis. Then we have the germ theory. Okay, now the germ theory, it's interesting. It has to do with disease states, that many diseases are caused by microorganisms. And Koch's postulate, Koch was brilliant microbiologist. He would develop these 4 aspects. Well, you had an animal or person with a disease. You would culture bacteria or pathogen out of that diseased animal. You would grow it, look at it, put this disease in a healthy animal, cause the same symptoms, okay, and then draw another sample out of the healthy animal that you infected, grow it again and compare the two. And if you had the same bacterium or pathogen, you would say, wow, this is the causal factor of the disease. Good science? Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I mean, it makes sense because we didn't have electron microscopes, we didn't have DNA analysis. Okay, so that is like, I mean, brilliant for the time, and it was actually brilliant for today too. What's interesting, Theobald Smith, now this is probably one of the most brilliant guys around. He even developed the diphtheria vaccine. And so, you know, why would I honor a guy that's developed a medical technology that I disrespect now? Well, because this guy was a thinking fella. He was intelligent. He was using knowledge, which is a group of facts, but he was using it with wisdom. See, he knew that bugs, okay, or pathogens can cause certain diseases. He knew that the virulence of that pathogen, you know, how tough it was, the opening size and the number of the pathogens, it would result in the severity of disease. But however, he divided this whole thing over the resistance of the host. Now, this answers a lot of questions. Think of it, if 10 of us walked through a swamp that had malaria-containing mosquitoes, we all get bit with mosquitoes. Not all of us come down with malaria. Why? Because of the resistance of the host. Okay, and that's one of the major factors in here, and then that equates to the severity of disease. Pasteur recounted on his deathbed that it wasn't the germs that caused disease, it was the weakness of the host. So this is huge. And it's interesting that if you've ever heard of anaphylaxis, it was called the Theobald Smith phenomenon. Hypersensitivity to bacteria upon repeated injections is now called anaphylaxis, long known to have this Theobald Smith phenomenon. Now here's a developer of the diphtheria vaccine, and he felt that each time you vaccinate someone, you hypersensitize their system. Now this is back in the early 1900s. Do you think that he'd approve of 5 DPT shots, diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus shots before the age of 5? Or 69 doses of 16 different vaccines? Or do you think he would do a scientific protocol that compared vaccinated to unvaccinated? Or that he actually used the knowledge and wisdom to check into it? And I like this. This is a quote out of his article in 1905. And the guy, if you've ever read medical textbooks around the turn of the century, it's beautiful. It's written eloquently. Medical science, or the study of disease, is but part of the science of life or biology. See, right now, we're in that medical mindset of the hospital, the doctor in the white jacket. You're abdicating authority to that doctor for your health. When the doctor goes over, he's holding the blood test. You would follow anything I say. Okay? Why? Because that's just a collection of numbers. It doesn't make sense. You're not going to say, Doc, could I have a second opinion? You know, you don't look like you got enough authority. No, you're not going to say that. You're going to follow it. But medical science is the study of disease. Now, I would say that we've learned now that disease is more adaptive physiology. Now, the Lancet question, the germ theory, is it really work? Now, limitations on the germ theory, Lancet, 1968. The germ theory has become dogma because it neglects the many other factors which have a part to play in deciding whether the host germ environment complex is to lead to infections. Does that make sense? Absolutely. So if the germ theory is being questioned, then should we vaccinate every kid on the planet to protect against a germ? Does that have a long-term positive effect on the immune system? You know, we have to start looking at this. When we look at the British Medical Journal, 2004, do biomedical models of illness make for a good healthcare system? And what they're talking about is the model that we have today. Okay, Virchow is another microbiologist right at the turn of the century. Conclusions on all diseases results from cellular abnormalities. Now, this is supported that there are cellular problems, okay? There are certain microbial attacks, but no one's talking about the host immune system. The biomedical model is clearly relevant to many disease-based illnesses and has an intuitive appeal and supported by a wealth of supporting biologic findings. So this is why the biomedical model is so popular. This is why it's practiced by so many doctors. Except here's the problem, and this is where you can summarize this. And I know there's a wordy slide, but I want you to get the overall picture of what they're saying that you're under. If you're going to a medical doctor and you're utilizing this system, this is the basis that they're looking at. This is what they're doing all the blood tests for. This is their philosophy, okay? This is the philosophy behind what they're doing. First, all illnesses and symptoms and signs arise from underlying abnormality within the body, referred to as a disease. Second, all diseases give rise to symptoms, eventually if not initially, and although other factors may influence the consequences of disease, they're not related to development or manifestations. Point 3, health is the absence of disease. Anybody got challenged with that? Now, is a fever an intelligent response given the environment? Knowing that viruses and funguses die at a higher temperature, for every 1 degree increase in temperature, the speed of the immune system doubles. So it's a lie to say health is the absence of disease. How can you say that when 90% of the nerves that come off your spine have no pain fibers? Most cancers are painless. I mean, this doesn't make any sense at all. But again, we're going British Medical Journals, a definition of the biomedical model or the philosophy of healthcare today. Mental phenomena, such as emotional disturbances, delusions, are separate and unrelated to other disturbances of bodily functions. We know that this is not true. We know that this is not true because, one of my books is Depression and Anxiety, Mechanical Distortion, causing a consistent stress response in the body. Here's the next one. The patient is a victim of circumstance with little or no responsibility for the presence or cause of the illness. How many times has the doctor told you, it doesn't really matter what you eat, this is bad luck or bad genes? Did your uncle have it? You're going to have it too. If you knew how many patients that we've had that have been in the hospital with a diagnosis of cancer or some disease, and they're served Jell-O with genetically modified high fructose corn syrup. Okay, my brother-in-law had type 2 diabetes, and I've been begging him for 10 years, please, buddy, just don't eat meat for a month. Eat normal food. It's got to be healthy and organic. Within a month, your blood sugar is going to be normal. Do you know what they fed him in the hospital? Pancakes with syrup. And the nurse said, no problem, I've got your insulin shot right here. I know. I'm looking at a whole bunch of heads going, oh yeah, man. Okay, the patient is a passive recipient of treatment, although cooperation of the treatment is expected. Okay, all this current medical model, see, the philosophy of the biomedical model has turned the medical system into the leading cause of death in America. Why? This failure stems partly from these three assumptions. An illness has a single underlying cause. Theobald Smith, 100 years earlier, said, no, there's multiple causes. It's the resistance of the host. Disease or pathology is always a single cause. Really? So does that mean that breast cancer is a problem of the breast? Not with the physical, chemical, or emotional stress load, not with the stress load that that person's been under for so long. And is that just a manifestation of a sick body, or is that really the problem? Do you understand? Now, removal of the attenuation of the disease will result in a return to health. Great, we've just removed the breast tumor, and we've given you poison called chemotherapy, and we're going to take tamoxifen for a while. You're going to be cured. Oh, man, did I mention that tamoxifen actually causes secondary tumors in the uterus? So we should just take that right out. By God, you're over 40, you ain't going to use that sucker anymore anyway. Or, now look at what the British Medical Journal says. Evidence exists that all three of these assumptions are wrong. They are. Philosophy. This is the love of wisdom. It's how the medical model is utilized. It's how they're utilizing the information or knowledge. Summary points. The biomedical models have been associated with improvements in medical care. They do not explain functional somatic syndromes and illness without discernible diseases. This is why they can't find chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or depression or anxiety. These are totally different because they can't find the pathogen. They're not looking at those diseases as intelligent responses given the environmental stimulus. They're not respecting that the body is going to give high blood pressure or high cholesterol or all these different factors that they measure as an intelligent response given the physical, chemical, emotional stress. An expanded model of illness is proposed. Yes, which emphasizes that disease is only one factor contributing to the illness and illness behavior. By God. Okay, granted, it was only 13 years ago, and this hasn't really taken this system by storm. Okay, here's one, 1977. A need for a new change in biomedicine. The dominant model of disease today is biomedical. It leaves no room within its framework for the social, psychological, and behavioral dimensions of illness. That was 1977. A biosocial model is proposed that provides a blueprint for research and framework for teaching and design for action for the real world of healthcare. What if somebody presents with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or depression or anxiety? I got to tell you, how many people come in here with depression and anxiety? We take an x-ray, we find out they got poor sleep, they've got a leaky gut where serotonin is produced, they've got forward head carriage where dopamine is produced. So I say, no, you don't have depression and anxiety. You got low dopamine, low serotonin brought on by physical, chemical, or emotional stress. I know you can't sleep right, so we're going to turn you into sleep. You poop about every other day, and you got bunion formation, which means the pelvis is unstable. And they look at me like, man, how did you know? Dude, I can read a map. Okay, so think of this. There's an innate inborn intelligence in the body. So that means that disease is an intelligent presentation of their perception of the stressors that they're under. Disease is an adaptive response to environmental stimulus. It's an intelligent response. When we start to look at the disease presentation, the joint pain, okay, could that be because the head's forward, the shoulders are internally rotated, and we're compromising blood supply and nerve supply, making those joints not work correctly? So all we got to do is restore the normal blood supply and nerve supply to the joints? Or what if our blood is too viscous, it's not fluid enough, and the joints can't get that synovial fluid production? What if joint pain is a symptom, okay, to a real problem? Parasites, are they good or bad? I'm not talking about ex-boyfriends or girlfriends, okay, or children, okay? I'm talking about the little bugs. Okay? No, you're not a parasite. You're cool. You're going to be a chiropractor. Don't look at that. Okay, so when you look at this, and I wanted to bring up something that we think is bad. Okay, candida, yeast. Oh my gosh, fight that. No, candida are food for bacteria. We have a competitive ecosystem in our body. We're just now understanding how important a microflora is on how your body responds to the environment. Annals of Neurology, first published January 10 years ago. To assess whether parasite infection is correlated with a reduced number of exacerbations and altered immune reactivity in multiple sclerosis. Reduced number. Parasites in the system actually reduce multiple sclerosis symptoms. Now, it turns out that these patients with this parasite had an elevated white cell production, or called eosinophilia. Okay, now you might think, okay, and again, I'm just going on a theory that the body is intelligent and presented with a neurologic disease that perhaps it's going to allow a pathogen to go. So what's eosinophilia? Now, this is an intelligent response from an environmental stimulus, okay? Now, eosinophils account for less than 7% of the circulating leukocytes, which are white cells. Several known causes, most common being an allergic reaction or parasitic infection. Okay, good. So we know that parasites are going to elevate this. And you can control this disease with corticosteroids. Now, you might think, well, geez, aren't steroids weakening the immune system? Couldn't that negatively affect other aspects? Doesn't that increase risk of cancer? Yeah, but if we're looking at the old model, that this elevated in white cells is bad, then we need, because we're smarter than the body, we're going to give it steroids. However, let's go back to the annals of neurology. Okay, it turns out that parasite-infected multiple sclerosis patients showed a significantly lower number of exacerbations, minimal variations in disability scores, and as well as fewer magnetic resonance imaging changes when compared to the uninfected patients. Oh my God, it turns out that the parasite grew and decreased the disease. Suggests that regulatory T cells induced during parasitic infection can alter the course of MS. Okay, who doesn't want to say it? Wow. Oh my God. Does that mean that our bodies are designed to live in this environment harmoniously? Could the hygiene hypothesis, where we're destroying all the pathogens and giving our body no healthy bacteria? Understand that we have parasites in our system. Over 90% of the population has Helicobacter pylori, and they're not developing stomach ulcers from it. We have E. coli in the colon. Okay, it's supposed to be there. We've got normal pathogens. We have candida, funguses, bacteria, viruses. Heck, 50% of your DNA is viral. I mean, we have a harmony in this world. Polypharmacy. So what do we do? What do we do with symptoms? Because remember, we're under the dysfunctional model. And what's the philosophy of the model? Well, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, anxiety, joint pain, reflux, diarrhea, smelling, skin rash, these are all diseases that need to be controlled with medications. Does anybody know what the reflux medication does, the Nexium, with the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, with the sleep medication, with the antihistamine? No, nobody does. But we do know the average person over 65 takes 7 drugs a day. Nobody knows what 2 of those do together. They get about 28 prescriptions a year, and the right drug at the right time in the right dosage kills about 100,000 people a year, every year. So we know that controlling symptoms with a chemical, which is today's philosophy, kills more people every year than died in the Vietnam War. And no one's up in arms by it. Studies have found that up to 30% of hospitalizations of elderly patients are linked to toxic drug effects. I was blown away. 2 weeks ago, I went to Catalina and I qualified for the senior discount. I'm considered elderly. Yeah, I'll take advantage of that discount ticket, you betcha. But this is insane that they would think this is appropriate. Treating symptoms. Think of this. Symptoms are an adaptive physiological response. can cause mental decline. This means that the longer you take a drug, the more you've taken a drug, the liver becomes less able to detox your system. So what kind of drugs cause mental decline? Corticosteroids. Yeah, if you have eosinophilia and multiple sclerosis, do you want to take a steroid? No. Okay, why? Because we need the parasites. Narcotics, sedatives, antidepressants, antihistamines, Parkinson's med, anti-anxiety, cardiovascular drugs. All of these drugs cause a mental decline. What about non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, Advil, Motrin, Aleve, all of these things, along with the codeine, the morphine sulfate, Oxycontin, Percocet. Here's the tough part. Is inflammation a pathology that needs to be controlled, or is it a healing process? And it's a healing process, kind of. But we have two things. We have systemic inflammation where your whole body starts to inflame because of toxic exposure. Or we have a local inflammatory response, which is the body going to try and heal that area. Okay, does that make sense? So local inflammation is how the body heals. Systemic inflammation can kill you. So systemic inflammation is from long-term poisoning. It's interesting that these are linked to dementia and inflammation, but I want you to look at inflammation or joint inflammation as a body trying to adapt and repair that joint. This is confusing this poor guy who's still in the medical model, the medical biomedical model. The study doesn't prove that inflammation is a factor in Alzheimer's. Negative studies like this fail to prove the hypothesis, leaving thousands of questions to be answered. He's still thinking that inflammation is what's causing Alzheimer's, not the drugs used to treat the inflammation that are causing an increase in Alzheimer's. Do you understand? They're giving these anti-inflammatory drugs and they're seeing Alzheimer's progress. And he's thinking, all we gotta do is control the inflammation because it's the inflammation that's bad. Do you understand? It's nuts. Antihistamines are linked to Alzheimer's, or are histamines released for an adaptive response? Isn't that interesting? See, when you scratch yourself, you're releasing histamines. A histamine response is how the body responds to an immune system problem, an immune system challenge. Simply put, we have confirmed that anticholinergics, something as seemingly benign as a medication for an inability to get a good night's sleep or for motion sickness, can cause worsening of cognitive impairment, specifically long-term mild cognitive impairment, which involves gradual memory loss. So we're talking Excedrin PM, Tylenol PM. I mean, these are over-the-counter chemicals. Why? Because what's the philosophy? The philosophy is, oh, you have a problem sleeping? Take this. This will get you knocked out. Gee, okay, doc, I know that's your philosophy, but what are the long-term effects? Well, your mind's not going to work, okay? You're going to have, Alzheimer's, dementia, a lot of different problems. And by God, those old movies will be right fresh for you. Do you understand? It's so insane in somebody saying, instead of saying, hey, gee, you got trouble sleeping? You got to do sleep restrictive therapy. Within 5 days, you're going to be sleeping fine. We need to get sleep in order to regenerate tissue. It's vital. Acid reflux in dementia. Well, for one thing, okay, is reflux come from too much acid? No, it doesn't. Reflux actually comes from too little acid. And it's interesting, I saw this commercial the other day, the little purple pill for 24 hours of relief, okay, Nexium, great stuff, okay? Now, granted, we know that the little purple pill increases esophageal cancer, but what's it for? To suppress reflux so you don't get esophageal cancer. And right after this commercial comes on, another commercial on Baker, Baker & Baker. If you've taken Nexium and you develop kidney disease, call us. We're going to sue those bastards. Well, they didn't exactly word it that way, but they kind of got like that. Okay, so we start looking at this as giving a chemical to alter your physiology, knowing that the physiology is an intelligent response to the environment, doesn't have an appropriate outcome. Does that make sense so far? when we look at glucose-lowering drugs for type 2 diabetes, if you haven't seen Simply Raw on YouTube, watch it. These guys get their blood sugar normalized in about a week of plant-based diet. That's why we recommend it. And within 30 days, most of them are cured of diabetes. So is type 2 diabetes an intelligent response given a toxic, deficient environment? It is. It is. And in fact, if you take a drug, according to the British Medical Journal, to chemically lower your blood sugar, say 9%, it increases death 19%. I know what you're thinking. 2 people recovered from death. One of them did have help. No Bible humor? No one knows Lazarus. Okay, am I the only one? Okay, so look at this. We're fixing a symptom of a problem and it's increasing death. Remember, this is the philosophy of medical care. An environmental impact on autistic. Can an artificial pathogen exposure, like an injection of 4-protein and adjuvants, result in systemic inflammatory response with a negative immune system response? What that means, can you vaccinate somebody and end up with a negative response? Absolutely. We're talking, if you read the Journal of Public Health and Epidemiology, coincidence with introduction of vaccines manufactured in human fetal cell lines containing fetal and retroviral contaminants into childhood vaccine regimes. Thus, the rising autistic disorder prevalence is directly related to vaccine manufactured using human fetal cell lines. Interesting. So when they say that vaccines are safe and effective, they are, except when they're not. And knowing that about 7 more years, we got 1 in 2 kids with a chronic illness or disease that are going to have autism. Currently, we have 1 in 2 kids now, today in 2017, with a chronic illness or disease. And you can say if anyone's getting these shots, okay, and they're on the standard schedule, you go up to your friends and neighbors and say, which one of the 4 do they got? Do they have behavioral issues, bowel issues, breathing issues, or skin issues? Which one? It's not, no, they don't have any, they're fine. No, it's they're on asthma drugs, they're on antacids, they're on anti-inflammatories, they're on steroids, they're using steroid cream. This is not normal. Injecting an artificial pathogen, okay, artificial proteins in the body. What did Theobald Smith say about that? Each time you do it, you can sensitize the system. What does the Journal of Toxicology say? All these findings plausibly implicate aluminum adjuvants in pediatric vaccines has causal factors in increasing rates of autism. Causal factors, not maybe, these are causing it. Journal of Public Health, autistic disorders change points coincident with the reduction of fetal cells. Okay, what about the schedule? Who says that this schedule is safe, effective, and appropriate? Studies have not been conducted to determine the safety or efficacy of administering multiple vaccine doses in a variety of combinations as recommended by the CDC guidelines, Human Experimental Toxicology. This gal was a real scientist. She died of, I think, brain cancer a couple of years ago. But look at her pedigree. Okay, American physician, cardiologist, first female at the National Institute of Health director. She was professor of medicine at Johns Hopkins, chair research division, Cleveland Clinic, professor and dean of College of Medicine and Public Health at Ohio State. I mean, this gal was sharp. Too quick to dismiss vaccine concerns as irrational. The more you delve into it, if you look at the basic science, if you look at the research that's been done in animals, if you look also at some of these individual cases, and if you look at the evidence, what you come away with is that the question of vaccine safety has not been answered. It's true. See, she's using wisdom. She's not practicing a dogmatic approach. She knows that. Cholesterol. What does cholesterol do? You know what, I'll ask this question of patients and they'll say, oh, it clogs arteries. Really? Boy, your body's really stupid. It produces a substance at 70% of your brain and it clogs arteries? Yeah, there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. My doctor told me. Really? Well, which one's bad? Okay, which one's good? What are the functions of two? What are the functions of cholesterol? Well, we know it's 70% of the brain. We know it's the precursor to virtually every glucocorticosteroid, mineralocorticosteroid, sex hormone that your adrenal glands make. It's essential for vitamin D production. It produces bile, which helps you break down fats so they can form hormones. Vital around every cell membrane. And in fact, without cholesterol, you die. And they're seeing low cholesterol rates have higher disease rates. Let's look at the expert review of clinical pharmacology. Statins stimulate atherosclerosis, which is hardening of the arteries, and heart failure. If you're a Klingon, you don't got to worry about this. You got two hearts. I'm just talking about humans here. We only got one. Unless you're an artist, then you got it on your sleeve. Statins may be causative in coronary artery calcification. Why? Because it inhibits the synthesis of vitamin K2, cofactor for protein activation, which turns out to protect the arteries. Is cholesterol bad for your body and your body is stupid and just makes it? Okay, what species on the planet can't regulate their own function? Do you understand this? If cholesterol is high, it's because you got an inflammatory state that you need cortisol, or you got tissue damage. The body doesn't do stupid things. Thus, the epidemic of heart failure and atherosclerosis that plagues the modern world may paradoxically be aggravated by the pervasive use of statin drugs. We propose that the current statin treatment guidelines be critically reevaluated. By God, they're trying to put statin drugs in condiments of fast food restaurants because the food is so poisonous. If you take this, you'll be able to not raise your cholesterol. Okay, so let's break down the whole the philosophy. What is your philosophy? I'm showing you the biomedical model, how it's not based in science. Okay, it's not, there's no wisdom to it. The real causes right now are not diseases. This is your adaptive to physical, chemical, and emotional stress. What is our health like? When we look at this, 50% of our population will have cancer, 20% have an autoimmune disorder. Now, is cancer an adaptive physiologic response given a toxic deficient environment? Yes or yes?
Yes.
We know it's a metabolic disease. An autoimmune disorder, is that an adaptive response, or is this disease attacking you and taking symptoms for that autoimmune disorder? Heart disease, by God, we know if you're taking statins, and you can see our talks on blood pressure, you can see the diuretics and beta blockers, and you can see the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. All of these are implicated in heart disease. What animal on the planet has a disease of the heart? 1 in 10 have liver disease. If you had 1 in 10 caribou with a liver disease, would you say, gee, you need some statin drugs, or by God, don't eat crap? 1 in 20 are depressed. 1 in 3 seniors die of dementia. Why? In our culture, are they doing that? Thyroid problem? No, check out our 7 lectures on thyroid. It has to do with a systemic inflammation or toxic deficiency. Diabetic, we already know that you can cure type 2 diabetes in about a month. Okay, chronic digestive disorders. What type of animal on the planet can't digest their own nutrients? Do you understand? This is a species-wide psychosis. Subluxation, this is what we do. Now, look at this. Again, the body has an innate inborn intelligence. A subluxation is a bone that's slightly misaligned, that's getting alternate signals up to the brain, that's changing proprioceptive responses, or the real definition, a self-perpetuating central motor control problem that involves a joint, such as a vertebral motion segment, that is not moving appropriately, resulting in an ongoing maladaptive neuroplastic changes that interfere with the central nervous system's ability to self-regulate, self-organize, adapt, repair, and heal. If I stood on your toe right now, would your heart rate elevate? Absolutely. Would blood supply to the gut be decreased? Absolutely. If I stood on your toe all day long, would you be able to sleep well? No. Okay? You wouldn't. Okay, so what would happen? After 3 or 4 days of that, you would have anxiety, stress, poor digestive disorders, all because of that physical stress. This is what we do. You could see a normal curve on the right, an abnormal curve on the left. This is the neck x-ray. So this is a person that's been under constant physical, chemical, or emotional stress load for years. It's the same thing as someone standing on their toe. So they don't have depression and anxiety. They got decreased blood supply to the gut. They got altered dopamine production here. Their body is responding intelligently given that environmental stimuli. We're looking at, on the left, that big black area is what a leaky gut looks like on an x-ray. There's a leaky gut. Now, medical science now is just now starting to say, okay, it's really there. We don't know what causes it. It can't be the drugs or food. We're looking for a pathogen because we're still in a biomedical model. Okay, she actually had abnormal gut function and destroyed gut from the vaccines. That's her 90 days later, normal. But we didn't fix the gut. What we did, we got the physical, chemical, and emotional stress load. Did you have good sleep or poor sleep? We fixed that using sleep restrictive therapy. Did we get the nervous system changed? Yeah, because that causes neuroplastic changes in the brain. We get her out of the physical, chemical, and emotional stress load. Did we change her diet and nutrition? Absolutely. She can't digest stuff there. Okay? A 9-year-old with ulcerative colitis, good God. What's the biomedical model say? It's idiopathic. We don't know. It just happened. Bad luck, bad genes. Who knows? Can't find the cause. We just know his gut's destroyed. Okay, now it couldn't be the hospital birth, the Pitocin epidural. Vaccines were stopped at a couple of years because the kid had seizures. Okay, but none of this stuff matters, right? It's his bowel. So what are they going to do? The bowel's inflamed. Inflammation is a healing process. Got that? So what do we do in stupid world, in the biomedical model? We give them an anti-inflammatory. Okay, since we're thinking it's some kind of pathogen, we're going to give them an antibiotic, even though we know antibiotics are going to destroy the gut. Now, it's inflamed, and it's an immune system response. So what are we going to do? We're going to give him a steroid too. So we're going to decrease his body's ability to heal. We're going to toxify it with more antibiotics, and we're going to weaken his system with steroids. This kid comes from Colorado. Okay? And within 3 weeks, his bowel started to feel better. Why? We didn't fix the ulcerative colitis. We fixed the physical, chemical, and emotional stress load. I told the kid to sleep with a hot pack on his tummy. Okay, why? Because we want to increase the inflammatory response, to increase blood flow, to increase healing, and that the gut is designed to heal. It's going to heal quickly. And you're not going to eat any more poisonous food. We're going to pre-digest it. I mean, this is our philosophy. The philosophy that the body is intelligent. We don't treat the disease. That's a dog chasing its tail. How do we fix this psychosis of the biomedical model? Well, first, own this. This is your philosophy right now. Bam! Okay, did you see like the light come out and it hit everyone on the forehead, kind of like opening the thing at Indiana Jones? Okay, good. Bam! You now understand the body is self-healing and self-regulating. Yes or yes? I say amen. Okay, so now vaccines, we understand that it's not one drug for everything, and it's not even the pathogens, that we got the pathogens over the resistance of host. So vaccines do not increase the resistance of host. It doesn't help the immune system long term, particularly when we know the guy that developed the diphtheria vaccine says, by God, every time you inject, you're increasing the risk of a problem. Antibiotics, don't eat commercially produced food. That's where most antibiotics are. And if you're curious about lung infections, most lung infections are mold. When they give you an antibiotic, it's more mold. Medications, find out why the doctor is giving it to you and fix the adaptive response that causes your altered state of physiology that he thinks is a disease process. Want me to say that again? Okay, think of this. Medications are given because he thinks that your metabolism or physiology is a disease process, not an adaptive, intelligent one. Okay, so find out what the heck is going on with your metabolism and change it. If it's a toxic deficient diet, change it. Environmental toxins, those aren't good, let's change. What did your grandparents call organic food? Food. Eat it. Don't eat genetically modified or toxic food. Nutritional deficiencies, we got to take supplements now, and chronic stress. What is your philosophy on nutrition? If man makes it, you don't eat it. But remember, for centuries, we would pray over food. Why? Because it becomes you. If you're eating an apple or banana or anything, or drinking water, that's going to become blood. It's going to become saliva. It's going to become everything. So make sure what you put in there is healthy. It has to be healthy bacteria. By God, after this, people are going to say, no, man, give me that parasite. Yeah, I don't want to have multiple sclerosis. No, you're going to be fine. Just eat normal food, okay? You need healthy gut bacteria, organic plant-based diet, healthy fats, fermented foods. This is your philosophy. Your philosophy is you're going to increase the microflora of your gut. You do this by putting what goes in your mouth that it's healthy for you. Lower calories make you live longer. If you're fasting 2 non-consecutive days a week, guess what? Blood sugar normalizes and immune system's increased. You get hungry, it's okay. Eventually your fat metabolism or ketosis is going to kick in and then you won't be hungry. It's amazing. Have your chiropractor direct you. 2 non-consecutive days a week. Why? It increases your immune system. What's your philosophy on living food, bacteria-containing food? What is your philosophy on that? Okay, because you're all responsible for your health. Why? Because you're self-healing and self-regulating. Do you need this every day? Absolutely you do. What's your philosophy for omega-3s? If you know this is the most essential nutrient for brain function, okay, that you have to have it to function and adapt to this toxic, deficient environment. What's your philosophy on vitamin D production? Are we designed to live on this? Do we need vitamin D? Is there low vitamin D levels in dementia, Alzheimer's, cancer? Yes, there are. So if you're living north of the equator far, you have to supplement. If you're standing in the sunlight and your shadow's longer than your body, you're not getting enough. So you have to supplement with this. What's your philosophy on exercise? Do you park your car at the furthest end of the parking lot so you can get a little bit more walking in? Do you have to walk a half hour every day? Absolutely you do. Why? Because you need that resistance in order to regenerate your tissue. And we know, lower your risk of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, those are the big 3 killers. These are those diseases you have to earn. Can you see why we put the 5 keys up here? Does the nervous system control and coordinate every function? Isn't it essential to get that checked first? Absolutely. Exercise. What's your philosophy on exercise? Okay, what's your philosophy on what goes in your body? This is not only essential, this is how you reverse disease and prevent disease. Because your body is self-healing. That means the only way you can heal from a disease is to get the self involved. Proper nutrition. If man makes it, you don't eat it. But we got to have certain supplements. We got to have healthy fruits, healthy vegetables. What's your philosophy on sufficient rest? Can you get REM state of sleep, regenerate your tissue and reverse disease? Is that an essential portion of reversing disease and regenerating tissue? Absolutely. If you had good nerve supply, great nutrition, and you were emotionally upset and you suck at sleep, is your health going to improve or decline? Decline. It has to. Each one of these is just as important as the other one. Prayer and meditation, what does that do to have a spiritual connection? Does it have a calming effect on you? Absolutely. I mean, this is essential. Now, I'd recommend you go to the drjohnbergman.com site. We have a disease database that's brilliant. But when you're looking at these so-called diseases, are the diseases an actual pathogen attacking an innocent, healthy human? I know you say no, but you're right to. Okay. Or are they adaptive physiologic responses? 10 people walk through a swamp, they all get bitten by malaria containing mosquitoes. Only the weakened immune system are going to have an immune system response that's present in a disease state. The healthy ones are going to have an immune system response that's not going to present with symptoms. Mediterranean cruise is next week. I'm going to try and do a Tuesday half hour to health from the boat. I don't know how that's going to work. Okay, I really don't. I'm not technical at this. Now, any questions about the philosophy of healthcare or the philosophy of science? Yes, sir.
Do you entertain the thought of the way people are going with the toxic life and, everything you've been talking about tonight, storing your DNA and transferring to your kids so they're already right off the bat lower than what they should have been?
Is it altering DNA or DNA expression?
I mean, do you feel like, yes, essentially that changes what you're passing on within this?
Oh, good God, yeah. In fact, the talk we did about 3 weeks ago was on genetics, genetic expression. Okay, and you'll see a lot of the medications, because I'd have been up here for like 3 hours if I did all the medications that are crazy, the muscle relaxants that cause muscle spasms, the anti-cancer drugs that increase cancer, the heart disease drugs that cause heart failure. I mean, all of the drugs cause an alteration in genetic expression. And we're talking everything from birth control to non-steroidals to everything. They alter your gene expression, because why are genes expressed? To adapt to the environment. Okay, what controls gene expression? It's your perception of the environment. And we can do that right now. Ha! Did I just stimulate a stress response? Yes. Based on your perception, your brain secreted chemicals called cortisol and adrenaline, based on your perception. Of course, you thought, he's screaming like at a sporting event. I'm digging that. Okay, so you secreted serotonin and dopamine. You were digging it. You were scared. It's okay. Same stimulus, totally different chemicals secreted by how your brain perceives the environment. That's an expression of the genes to produce the dopamine and serotonin, to produce the cortisol and adrenaline, based on environmental stimulus. And what would happen long term with these two people if they were under that constant threat? Absolutely, man. It's not the genes we got, it's the genes we express. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask, will it heal just by nutrition only and supplements, natural supplements?
Huh?
Or it needs like a chiropractic treatment? If asthma can heal by natural treatments and supplements and nutrition?
Oh.
Or it needs chiropractic treatment?
It totally depends. I have no idea. Which factor is causing the asthma? If it's the poor nutrition, poor sleep, multiple medications, multiple toxicities, absolutely. If he has no nerve pressure, then nutrition's going to help him. If he has nerve pressure from a traumatic birth, like the mom was given Pitocin, he's been given multiple vaccines, he has a leaky gut, he's going to have to get his nervous system checked.
What about C-section?
A C-section has 4 times the amount of pressure on the kid's neck. And now this is doctrine stuff, okay? Think of this. Mom says, my kid has asthma. Kid was born with a C-section. That's 4 times the amount of pressure on the kid's neck. So I'm going to ask next, did the kid have ear infections? Typically, a mom will say, no, not many, just one. Well, that means ear infections are, did he have any ear infections?
Just one.
There we go. We did not plan this, by the way, okay? This is spontaneous, but I hear it every freaking time. Okay, one, because ear infections aren't infections, they're ear effusions, so that means he has pressure on the neck from that. So he's had pressure on the brainstem for years. Okay, and then if he's fully vaccinated, great, that's going to be a whole different set. Then I'm going to ask him if he's got one of the 4. We already know he has breathing issues. Bowel issues, how many poops a day does he get? Behavioral issues or skin issues. Does he have skin rashes? More than likely he's going to have some of those. So we know that his body has some type of physical, chemical, or emotional stress load, so we can fix it. But healthy nutrition, it's a good step in the right direction. But man, if you take an x-ray, you're going to find probably pressure on the brainstem, you're going to find a leaky gut, everything. So, if you correct the cause, the adaptive physiologic response, which is what people in the Dark Ages called a disease, okay, what we now in the enlightened world call adaptive physiologic response, it would go away because the disease doesn't really exist. Yeah, so we can fix them.
So we'll be here for 6 more days.
Okay, we'll talk to the girls.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Water. What about drinking plenty of water, and what type of water should you drink?
Excellent. You need about 50% of your body weight in ounces a day in the ballpark, but it's got to be filtered water. Reverse osmosis eliminates the minerals, but it also eliminates a lot of the pathogens. So if you have a reverse osmosis that remineralizes the water, that's going to be ideal. A Berkey filter is good, a Dalton filter is good, but you got to have healthy water, and we're talking a lot of it. If you're talking tap water, it's poisonous. It has fluoride, chlorine, and drugs. So you can't drink that stuff. And the
That's
little,
what I wanted to hear, about the tap water.
oh, buddy, you can't do that. Yeah, and then even like the little filters that you see on the TV that, you know, have a little TDS or totally dissolved solvent meter and say, look at how clean it is. No, it's not eliminating the toxins.
I already have Kangen water.
Kangen's okay, but it has a little tiny filter that, I mean, it couldn't deal with a huge volume. Okay, it does alkalinize it. It's excellent. It's excellent. But I haven't seen good data on how much fluoride and chlorine it removes. Okay. Any other questions? Because next week, probably from Spain. Thank you very much.